Hey, I'm Guy, and that's John.
Yes, it is. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Subscribe to our podcast down below in the description. Like the video, and maybe even leave a comment.
This is a fun little draft conversation that's been popping up ever since the report Breer wrote on Monday that Devontae Smith was asked at the Senior Bowl, Mac Jones or Tua, and then he didn't hesitate, and he said Mac Jones. So then Jalen Waddle goes on NFL Network, and Siciliano asks him same question, and he does the whole setup. The report was that they asked Devontae, and he didn't even hesitate. He said, Mac Jones, what do you say? And Jalen Waddle didn't hesitate either. Jalen's like, yeah, I got to go with Mac Jones. I was watching the question being asked going, how is Jalen Waddle going to sidestep this one? And then he didn't. He just attacked it head on. What's going on?
On the most basic level, it's a very unique circumstance, right? To have back-to-back first-round quarterbacks, and then the second wave of guys, right, the second quarterback, to also have two wide receivers that people want to talk to / move the needle when they say something. If these were defensive backs or even an offensive lineman, I don't think it would be quite as glaring seeing two wide receivers who are going to go potentially in the top 12. If this was just like Guy Haberman, who's like a 7th-round pick, no one would want to talk to him. Like, it's just, the reason to me it's such a big story is because of the two guys saying it, right? Two guys that are going to go really high, who played with both guys at wide receiver. I just think you could, you have to, I use this line, and most humans do, like, you couldn't write this in a movie. It's hard to write this script. This is just, you can't really make this shit up, right? This would not be moving the needle like it was if the two wide receivers weren't as fucking good as they are, given how much everyone wants to talk to them. Correct?
Absolutely correct. Yes.
They're the ones making this story.
Yes.
Those two guys are making this story.
That's right.
Because their opinion is asking, like, who would you rather play quarterback? Well, you're the wide receiver. It does matter. And then they both said this, and it's kind of like, to me, you can argue Devontae Smith, whatever. He won the Heisman, right? So, of course, he's going to say Mac.
Sat next to Mac.
Yeah, and then just when this guy says it, it feels like why? It's not even anti-Tua. Like, maybe they just genuinely believe that Mac Jones is a better player than Tua. And then I think you think with quarterbacks of like, well, do they just like the guy more? And then you start factoring in, like, does that mean he's a better teammate? Is he cooler? Is he more normal? And is he more talented? Because I watched Tua, and I don't even know if he's that talented. So we're kind of at the situation where all of his teammates, when it was just Devontae, I could hear the argument. It doesn't mean anything. I got you. Even though I subscribed to the channel that it does mean something. When it's this guy, like, I'm sorry. It's like drip, drip, drip. Now it's just, I'm taking those guys' words because I've watched them and I know these guys are good enough players, and the players in that program tend to be pretty smart.
There are some people who come back and say, well, there's nothing you can do for Tua's stock. We talked about this the other day, and I saw this response when this video came out. There's nothing you can do about Tua's stock. These guys are helping Mac. And this is where, to me, there's a difference between they just think he's a better player and they like him more. It does make me – I don't know. I mean, everything about Tua was like Tua's super likable. So it's hard. I don't want to say they don't like him because I don't know. But I do think if he was your guy too, you'd go, oh, man, there's a way to answer it where you say, it's tough. First of all, I think Tua's going to have a big year this year. I know he's better than what he put on tape last year, whatever. But to me, no one would go wrong with Mac Jones. To me, it's got to be more than just they're trying to make Mac Jones some money. Because I don't think you would do that for Tua. I don't think you would do that to Tua just to make Mac Jones some money. It'd be one thing, honestly, if Tua was playing really well. Like if Tua
just crushed it, like been Rookie of the Year.
If
whatever.
Tua you didn't have to have Herbert's year. It would actually feel less weird if they were saying this stuff. Because to me, it's one thing to say something negative about somebody when they're having success. You can't really even say it. Like, I don't even know if they said, oh, we love Mac. I'll tell you what, as good as Tua was, wait till you guys see Mac. No one would think twice. If Tua was really good and they were like, what do you think, Tua or Mac? They'd be like, I mean, look, Tua was incredible. I bet Mac throws more touchdowns. But when you say it when somebody's down, like, I don't know, man. It's because Tua's kind of down right now. To say that stuff while Tua's down, I don't think that's a hairier area to step into. It feels like you got to mean it more. You can't just screw around to make Max some money because you're kind of kicking Tua when he's down.
Why I just know the way these draft meetings go and what you have to ask in these settings, whether it's, with your scout, with your coach, at the pro day. We've talked about this before. You naturally ask a guy, best player you played with, best player you played against. And typically they understand, like, they're not going to bring, like, it's tend to be a guy in the draft, right? A guy that's kind of relevant. It's usually not like Billy Smith from this random school. You're like, who's this guy? They're going to be on the names that you're looking for. And when they say, and all these guys are saying Mac Jones, like, this is a really good thing for Mac Jones that these two guys are saying this. And it doesn't feel hollow. It doesn't feel like they're saying that just to help them. They're saying it because they genuinely believe it. Like, I don't think these guys are saying this for any other reason beside, like, when I saw that, my first thought is, like, how is Mac Jones not the biggest lock first rounder? Like, I just think he's an absolute lock at first round. I don't still know what level of the round. And we've talked about, I'm anti non-mobile quarterbacks moving forward, just the way the league's changing. When I say non-mobile, I just need you to be able to keep plays alive with your leg. Josh Allen, Mahomes. I'm not looking for Lamar, but Russell, Deshaun, like, that's who I want now. I don't want Jared Goff. And if Mac Jones, let's say, is Jared Goff, Matt Ryan type, me personally, I'm just not into that. I think it's very hard in the way the game is played now, given the personnel coming in the league, way better defensive linemen than offensive linemen. You can't move. It's tough because he can't move. At Alabama, his offensive line was elite, and obviously his players were wide open. But he's clearly pretty talented. I couldn't draft him. I'm just, I think Kyle will see, but he's not. I'm not into that right now. Now, if he had been like Peyton Manning level prospect, which he's not, right? I mean, I think he was a fringe first rounder, and I think now it just feels like these draft rooms, like, all these guys love him. The Saban loves him. The program loves him. He was good. He's arguably better than Tua. I think we would talk about Tua a little bit differently if he had gone 28. You'd be like, well, the Dolphins, they got this guy coming off a hip. It wasn't really that crazy. The part of the reason that Tua brings so much craziness is that he was the 5th pick and then given the guy that went 6th. To me, if Mac Jones goes like pick 28, that's not that crazy. Like, you get that 5th-year option extra. It happened to Teddy. To me, though, if he goes like top 12, Niners and above, that to me did this buzz really elevate him to a new level? Because I'm still not quite sold that he's some lock top 15 pick. I do feel like I just don't see him not going in the first round at this point.
Yeah.
Given his production, given how good he was, and given the words all these people are saying about him. Because the words in this situation, they just matter.
I do think you're right, though, that I think what you're kind of saying is the way we should talk about this is not a Tua conversation, but a Mac Jones conversation. Tua's already in the league. Tua's already on a team. We'll see what happens with Tua. Somebody already decided to pay him, and they're paying him. The question is, what do you do with this with Mac? And to your point on the type of quarterback that he is, Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle could probably play with a lot of quarterbacks. Now, to Mac's credit, like, he hit those guys on deep balls constantly. They were wide open, but he was nailing them in the chest and in the hands nonstop, right?
Is there an NFL team that Jalen Waddle doesn't start for right now if he's healthy?
Devontae Smith might start for every team too.
Probably him too. So more than like both of them are lock starters for every team in the league. Or at least playing a lot and getting thrown at the ball a lot.
That's where it's like, what is offensive coordinator? What Nick would tell you honestly and privately matters more here, right?
But I think they're saying really good things. I think these guys like him a lot.
But that's fine. I'm just saying,
he dominated, guy.
I'm just saying, with those guys, I don't have those guys necessarily on my team in the NFL. I might. I hope I do. I mean, I'm an NFL team, so with an NFL quarterback, I hope I got NFL receivers. The question is, what if you have not those two guys? Can he make guys who aren't those guys better?
Well, that's back to the Breer article. He mentioned things after Devontae said that. Was word in the program was he worked harder than Tua, studied more film than Tua. He, in the building, was a little more all in, stuff like that.
But my point, John, is like, okay, so he's better than Tua. Great. What does that get me? Like, I don't need him to be better than Tua. I need him to be an NFL quarterback. better than Tua. I don't play the Dolphins 16 times, 17 times.
I'm not into drafting non-mobile quarterbacks who don't have elite traits. And I don't see elite traits. So I like the guy, and I think he probably could be a solid NFL player, but the ceiling's not there. I ain't into non-ceiling guys, especially if I'm just talking about from a Niners perspective, ain't doing it. Like, I'll give you an example. His physical traits don't really hold a candle like Derek Carr's. Derek's a way better athlete, got a much better arm. Like that, just think about it like that.
Yeah, but if Derek played at Alabama, where would he have been drafted?
I mean, it's hard to tell.
He wouldn't have been a second rounder.
No. But my point is that we're talking about Mac Jones, what he's going to be in the league. Like Alabama's over for him now. Like he's going to play. We're going to put him on an NFL team. Like Jared Goff, eventually just like, his limitations just really kind of came to fruition, right? You just see him. Cousins, I think, is better than Goff because maybe he's just a quicker thinker. Maybe just better talent around. I don't know exactly why, but like I put all these guys kind of in the same bubble. And I just don't want that type player. Matt Ryan was like the best version of the crew when he was younger. And I could fuck with Matt Ryan, but Matt Ryan was, I would say in a weird way, Matt Ryan was an overachiever. And part of it was like elite football intelligence, elite toughness in the pocket and stuff. And I think Rivers kind of similar too. I think it's just very, very difficult to win with those type guys in this modern day NFL. The way you get in these shooting matches now a lot. Like, it was easier to with Matt Ryan or Rivers, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, when you could win a lot of games, probably, and you could win, several games, maybe 23-17.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say a lot, even if your defense is good, they're just more shootouts. And when I say shootouts, I don't even mean in the 40s. You got to be pretty potent. And it's hard to be really potent when you don't have the physical skills because you can't pop fast, right? The one thing with the Deshaun, a Josh Allen, a Russell, they just can make explosive plays. This guy made explosive plays when he was playing with elite dudes, but there's a chance that he doesn't have elite dudes when he gets here, and his physical attributes, like guys aren't just wide open anymore. He just makes me nervous.
Yeah, I understand.
For a guy that
I would say,
look, go in the first round.
Well, what you're talking about is you put a guy on an NFL team that has elite dudes, and he's got Herbert's talent, and that's what it looks like. It looks like Herbert, right?
Yeah.
Which is Herbert, when you're drafting in the top 10, that's what you're drafting for. You're not drafting
even like Kyler, like he pops, you're like, God damn, that's talent,
I'm just saying,
right?
when you're drafting in the top 10, if that's not what you're getting, then you might be looking for a new quarterback in 4 years.
But I'd even say first-round quarterbacks, and this kind of goes to, when you draft quarterbacks in the second round, the pressure on them is just to be your franchise quarterback. So even if obviously my expectations are higher when I take you 7th than when I take you 28th, but the Vikings once upon a time took Teddy Bridgewater, I think, like the last pick, like 30th or 31st or whatever. They traded back in. The Ravens did the same with Lamar. Once you do that, even though you're like, well, we already used a first-round pick, we traded back in to get this guy. It doesn't matter how you acquired him. It's like, that's your first-round quarterback. He's your franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
That you agree. Johnny Manziel in the 20s. You agree that pressure, whether he goes 13th or 26th, your cap hit is a little smaller. But let's say the Niners somehow went from took an offensive lineman 12 and then traded back into the first round and took him at 28th. How would we talk about him? Like, they think he's going to be their starting quarterback.
Right.
That to me is where I think I feel confident he's going to go in the first round. Now, how much you pay him or how much draft capital you use, it doesn't change the narrative, though, the fans, and just the way naturally people are going to talk about it if you do select him in the top 32 picks. I'd even argue
I don't even think it's about narrative and fans, right? I mean, you're right. I'm saying it's even more, you don't take a guy in the first round unless you think he's your answer at starting quarterback. Because you're passing up a starter at another position is what you should be thinking.
And ultimately, like, if you get this version of Kirk Cousins, if you do a good job team building, your team can be really good, right? You can win. I think you could probably win with Mac Jones. But my point is, when I take a first, I don't want my margin for error to be way slimmer. Yeah. My margin for error with Josh Allen feels fucking high.
Right.
It's like, oh, yeah, we missed on this guy, whatever.
Your team better be really, really good if your quarterback's not going to be really good for 3 years, which is like Seattle. This may not be fair to Russ, but if they had a good enough team, or Tom had a good enough team, you didn't have to be a star right away.
But even, I think if you look at the Patriots over the years, like one of the great team builders / coaches ever, Belichick, some teams were better than others. It's just human nature, right? Well, that year they lost Gronk in week 4. This year, Hightower tore a pec. It's just, some years are going to be the Niners last year's worst case scenario, but I'd even just say middle of the road, like the Cardinals last year. All of a sudden, Chandler Jones just out like in mid-October for the year. Like that's inevitable. Like you're going to have every once in a while the years where it's like everyone stayed healthy and Kirk Cousins was our quarterback and we won 13 games and made it to the NFC Championship.
It worked.
But wouldn't you say over a 5-year period, that's going to be the one out of the 5 years, and then probably 2 or 3 of those years, well, Kirk, we just needed a little more out of him.
Well, you start paying $35 million for your quarterback.
Yeah. And that's where Russell, I think, why we got to speak highly of Russell, right? He's proven that he can carry you in that situation.
Yeah.